What is up, AFC South football fans, and welcome into another edition of the AFC South Roundtable powered by BetUS. I'm Z-Bot, your host tonight from the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel, filling in for TD, and we're here to recap a wild Week 5 of NFL football. Wild football taking place inside of the AFC South division. One of the games coming at the cost of my incompetent Buffalo Bills, and that's where we'll start right now. We'll bring in the man with the shades, enjoying the incompetency of Joe Brady, Sean McDermott, and company. Ruben, congrats on the W. Your Texans improved to 4-1.
Hey, man, look, dude, let me tell you this, dude. It feels damn good being a Houston Texans fan, and you see that you're 4-1. You see that you're undefeated at home. You see that you're first in the AFC South, and you see that you're number 2 behind the Kansas City Chiefs. We're feeling great. Hey, man, it came down to the wire, but a damn good game.
Not a good night for me to be on, a good night for you to be on, Ruben, and I'm interested to see what it's like on your end of things, having watched that gone down in your favor, because I know how bad it was watching it go down on my end of things. The other winner in the AFC South over the weekend, they're finally on the board. Duval filling in for UCF Jaguar. It's Cardiac Cats. Cardiac, you're on the board. Winless no longer. Congrats on the W.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think we're about as shocked as Colts fans are after that week. But maybe not. But it had to happen at some point, in theory.
Exactly. In theory, exactly right. Yeah, it had to happen at some point. Why not happen in the division? And it was another great game as well. And it had to, of course, happen at the hands of somebody. And it happened at the hands of my man, Derek. Derek, 34 points, and it wasn't enough. I don't know if sorry's enough to tell you right now after a loss like that.
I'm not surprised at this. And that's what pisses me off about it, is that I'm not surprised that this is what happened again. 3 of the best games that Trevor Lawrence has ever had in the history of his sorry-ass career comes against this sorry-ass team. So I'm pissed, still pissed. I hope that I can get it all out of here now so I can finally focus on the next guy's team that we're about to bring in here so I can start putting some of that energy towards him.
And the next guy that we are bringing in got to enjoy a week off. The earliest bye week imaginable for an NFL team was for these Tennessee Titans. Rossi, how was your week off? Did you enjoy it to some degree, kicking back, watching everybody but the Titans, stress-free football?
Oh, it was a super relaxing week, for Titans fans. We didn't lose, which was fantastic. We didn't have to watch Will Levis, turn the ball over 3 times in a game. It was amazing. It was awesome. It was relaxing. I got to spend time with my girl. We went out and went some places. Her mom came and it was nice. It was nice. But now we got the Colts, and looks like Will Levis is probably going to be playing. So I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point.
It's nice you got to get in some time with the girl. Usually I tell my wife, I say, honey, I'm not going to watch football on Tuesday night just for you. I'm going to take the night off on Tuesday night. I'm going to skip Tuesday night football, and it's just going to be you and I. So that's always the benefit of the bye week, especially early on. You get to go do some pumpkin patching or whatever the hell the lady likes to do that isn't requiring having to watch your team pacing around all day long. So as it stands right now here in the AFC South, these Houston Texans, who currently stand at 4-1, second place overall in the AFC, they stand put to be the heavy favorite right now to win this division. If we head over to BetUS, you'll see the odds. The Houston Texans currently minus 500 to win the South. I know it's only heading into week 6, folks, but that is as fat of a line as you can have in terms of being favored to win a division currently. Jacksonville at plus 1,200, along with the Titans at plus 1,200. And Derek, you got a long shot, but a shot nonetheless in second place with your Colts at plus 800. But man, that Texans at minus 500 is pretty damning. But I will say, if you want to put 500 down to win 100 on the Texans, who have these incredible odds to take the division, you can do so by using the promo code YouTube150 on BetUS. That's going to get you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, up to $2,000, and 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits after that. All right, fellas, week 5, it's in the books. The 2 games that we did have within the division were 2 great games. Let's start with the one that didn't involve 2 interdivisional teams. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Houston Texans. 23-20. In regulation, somehow the Houston Texans take this W. It wasn't odd that Houston won. What was odd is that they were able to win in regulation. Houston dominates the first half. The Bills are beyond incompetent on offense throughout the first half. They have no defense to speak of. The defense gets it in gear, though, in the second half. They turn over Stroud twice. Somehow the Bills tie it up. The Bills get it to a point where they're going to take it to overtime until they said, hey, we don't feel like it. Let's just let Kaimi Fairbairn, who's automatic from 55 plus, kick the game winner in regulation. Derek, I'll start with you here. You're watching this football game, or at least I'm sure you saw the highlights after your game. Your thoughts on just overall how this game went down and how the hell Houston was able to walk out of regulation with the W.
Well, I mean, I knew it was going to be a good game. I mean, these are two powerhouse teams, and, I thought that Houston was going to have a decent chance coming back from, that bad loss that they had against the Vikings. They were looking to try to get some revenge. So, I figured this would happen. It's kind of crazy that, Stroud threw for 331 yards and only ended up with one touchdown on the day. Seems pretty crazy. It seems like both of these teams were moving the ball, but just didn't really seem to be able to find the end zone a whole heck of a lot of times. And I saw that there was some madness going on. And, I did watch Ruben. I did watch that last kick. I watched your guys' live reaction to that at the very end there. I mean, that's crazy, man, to hit a 59-yarder. I mean, that's something you'll be able to tell your family and your future kids about, later on in life when you say you hit a 59-yard field goal. Not every day you see people do that. So, I mean, again, it was a back and forth one, and, neither team seemed to really get it going. I saw that Josh Allen obviously got hurt. When was that? When
It was like what
Second to last
like
drive.
second half, like 2 minutes left. He gets knocked out. I think he got knocked out.
Yeah, I was very much surprised that they even allowed him back in. I know that McDermott said, "Oh, he was cleared to go back in." I don't know if I believe that. I really don't know if the doctors or whoever was doing the stuff, I can assure you, were not doing their job very well. I mean, regardless of whether or not Josh Allen did actually have a concussion, you just needed to look at the fact that it took him a minute or two to get up. And if it takes you more than 30 seconds to get up off the ground and it is in any way, shape, or form a head injury, you shouldn't be letting the guy back in. I don't care if a game is on the line. Obviously, we talk so much about this player safety thing, but clearly ball clubs and the NFL alike simply just don't care. They only care about winning, and they will do anything to sacrifice a player's safety for that. But nevertheless, Houston gets the close one. I mean, you got to feel great about it. And, another great win for Houston.
Yeah, and it's funny with the Bills putting Allen back in. It's one thing to put him back in, but to put him back in and air the ball out the way they did with no time remaining while he comes out of the blue tent has all of Bills Mafia scratching their head. Cardiac, you're watching your Jags get the W, but on the other screen, Houston takes the victory in regulation. What was your thoughts from that crazy game in H-Town?
Yeah, I honestly thought Buffalo was going to win going in. It seemed like they were going to do it, but ultimately, you had the Josh Allen injury, and he somehow went back out there, but just terrible clock management at the end of the game for them. And, it just seems like Houston finds a way to win a lot of these games, whether or not the whole thing's pretty. And that's what really good football teams do. That's why they sit 4-1, why they're atop the division right now.
You said it best. Good football teams find a way. You could argue, other than last night, the Chiefs haven't looked great. They're 5-0. And in multiple games this year for Houston, it hasn't been great. They're 4-1, sitting right below those Chiefs. Good teams find a way. Houston did. Rossi, you had the day off, so you get to kick back and watch the division unfold, and you got a couple of great games to watch. What was your thoughts on the game between the Bills and the Texans?
Yeah, and I watched pretty much the whole second half of that game. And, yeah, I mean, and and Cardiac Cats brought it up, but at the end, the clock management blew my mind. I was like, what are they doing? Why don't they run the ball? Why don't they? All they had to do was run a few more seconds off the clock, and they could have at least took it into overtime. And if I was a Bills fan, I would be absolutely pissed, like after that game. And it was so dumb the way that they managed the end of the game there. And, throwing out of the end zone, all that. I get it. Look, you have Josh Allen, but at the same time, he was hurt. He was like 9 of 30 for that game. And the Texans were they didn't sack him a lot, but they were getting a lot of pressure. And shout out to the Texans defense because they showed up and they played a good game against Josh Allen and the Bills. And let me say this, as much as I hate to give CJ Stroud credit and all that stuff, but you watch the guy play, the way he has that quick release, the way he throws the ball, makes decisions. Like, I know, look, he's still young. He still makes some mistakes here and there. He threw that interception in the game. But at the same time, he is somebody that if I'm a Texans fan, I know Ruben is, and I know they all are 100% all in on CJ Stroud. As a Titans fan, he is somebody that I wanted. We weren't high enough to pick him, but I wanted him bad, and he's showing right now what he's made of. The throws that he was making in that game. Now, granted, he has great talent around him, but still, he has to make the throws for those plays to happen. And I was just super impressed by him, and I've said it all season. I've said it during the offseason that the Texans should be the team to beat in the AFC South. And quite frankly, they're one of the teams to beat in the whole AFC. They're one of, if not, I'd say one of the best, maybe if not top 3 in the AFC right now. So roses to Houston, as much as I hate to say it, but, they showed up in a big game and they pulled it out.
Houston's D holds Josh Allen to the worst completion percentage with 30 attempts in the last 30 seasons. Meanwhile, I know CJ Stroud had those 2 turnovers in the second half, but take it from my side of things, who was rooting against CJ Stroud in that game. That dude balled out. Like you said, Rossi, I thought CJ Stroud had an incredible game, 28 of 38 for 331, moving the pocket, making huge throws, a couple of third down and longs that seemed like the Houston Texans might give it up offensively and allow the Bills to take advantage of it. They kept cashing in every time, seemingly. So, Ruben, the floor is yours here. Talk to me. This is an incredible start for your Texans. Last year, there were no expectations. All of a sudden, they were sky high because of how great they looked. They've carried that into this year, 4-1. They now beat the Bills in dramatic fashion. What was it like watching that game go down and getting the W at the end of it?
The Houston Texans needed this one because, like you guys mentioned, we've been in close games all year. And when you look at the level of talent, a lot of people said, well, it's not there. Then you get your ass blown out by the Minnesota Vikings. The Houston Texans are not for real. So entering this game, me as a Houston Texans fan was saying, we got to win this one. No matter how ugly it gets, you got to walk out with the W. And the Houston Texans did that, and they showed that they are one of the best teams in the AFC in this league. I think Bleach Report has them number 4 in the power rankings. And what's crazy, boys, is that this Houston Texans team has not played 4 complete quarters of football. This offense is still not where it needs to be. You have been without Joe Mixon since week 2. You are without Titus Howard. You do not have Danico Archer, your Christian Harris, 2 starters on your defense. You had 3 games with 10-plus penalties, yet you still found a way to end up with the W. When this team figures it out, it's going to be insane. And, it also helps that you have arguably one of the best kickers in the NFL in Kaimi Fairbairn. And, you look at his contract and you're laughing. You have probably one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Nico Collins in that first quarter, 78 yards. He was about to torch your guys' secondary. Fortunately, goes out with a hamstring. And, you saw this offense struggle. You saw the offense struggle in the second half, which was why, the Bills were able to come back. And it's been that way all season for the Houston Texans. So once we figure out how to play 4 quarters, it's going to be scary, man. But a tough win, a win against a very good football team. We had starters out, both of us did. And for the Houston Texans to be a good coach, a good quarterback, man, we're feeling great right now.
Yeah, you said it, Ruben. Nico Collins goes down on that bomb of a touchdown. It seemed to shake things up a bit for Houston's offense. But when you factor in getting that W, improving to 4-1 without Joe Mixon, who looked like the best running back in the league in week one, Nico Collins goes down for that whole game, and you still get the W. It's a scary sight for people on the outside looking in on these Houston Texans right now because they got a lot of talent. And even when they're missing some of this talent, they're still finding a way. So your Houston Texans improved to 4-1. They're just a game shy of first place right now in the entire AFC. Let's move on to the other game within the division, the only other game, and it just so happened to be between the Jags and the Colts. And it was a hell of a game, 37-34. Both these games were 3-point games. The Jacksonville Jaguars had to get on the board, and they finally did. They get their first W of the season, 37-34, in a game led by Joe Flacco for the Indianapolis Colts. 359 yards and 3 touchdowns off the couch. The guy makes no sense, but Trevor Lawrence somehow was able to do him one better. 371 and 2 DDs for Lawrence in a huge game that they had to have. Rossi, I'll go back to you here and start off with you here on the take between these Colts and these Jags. Hell of a game. Jags had to have it. What was your overall takeaway from Jacksonville's W?
Yeah, I mean, hell of a game, and I was able to catch some of that. I went back and watched all the highlights as well and the breakdowns. I even watched some of Derek's after show on it. So
I saw the whole 50 minutes. I saw it all, Derek.
Wait, you talking about the after the game?
Bro,
Oh,
y'all let's
I'm
drag.
gonna watch this now.
Right. It was pretty good. If y'all are Colts fans or whatever, if you're football fans, go back and watch it. But no, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, obviously he needed this game. Like, I mean, there were all types of murmurings. You know, Jaguar fans have been up to here, a lot of them with Trevor Lawrence, and he needed a comeback game like this. Like, is it a little too late at this point? I mean, they're 1-4. What more can they really do at this point? As far as, I mean, playoffs are probably out of the question, you know, and all that. But Trevor Lawrence needed this type of game, and he did show up. Joe Flacco is unbelievable. Like, he looks so old too. Like, you see him walking on the sideline. Like, I was watching highlights and I'm like seeing him, dude. He looks like he's like 50 years old. You know what I mean? He's just got that old weathered look. But the dude's out there balling. It's unbelievable. Like, he's playing better than he did when he was in his prime. You know, like, he was playing great. I saw something where he's like been the highest rated quarterback in the league since he's been playing again with the Colts or whatever, which is insane. Tank Bigsby, a lot of fun to watch for the Jaguars. Like, at this point, I think he's almost better than Etienne in a way. Like, the guy just seems to get more pop. He makes a lot of plays, fun to watch. Alec Pierce for the Colts, that dude is phenomenal. Like, that dude is absolutely phenomenal. Like, he is a real ball player. You know, the dude just makes plays after play after play. Trayvon Walker, 3 sacks for the Jags as well. It was just a tough game. And the Colts, like, the defense just couldn't get that one stop that they needed. You know what I mean? They just couldn't get that stop. And Jaguars come down there, kick the field goal in the end. Tough loss for the Colts, and tough that they lost again down there in Jacksonville.
Ruben, last time we saw Joe Flacco start a game, your Houston Texans ran him out of the building. Now here he comes into Jacksonville. He pops off for 359. I mean, I just still can't get over the stat line for Flacco off the couch, but somehow it wasn't enough. Jacksonville, who could not score in any capacity for the most part the first several weeks, they find a way to put up 37 on Indianapolis. Your biggest takeaway from Jacksonville's first W of the season?
Yeah, I think, the Jaguars got themselves a hell of a wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. I wanted him at 23. Unfortunately, we traded back. He is going to be a real problem. You know, this game sucks for Indianapolis. You know, you see them 2-2. You're thinking, hey, we should beat a Jacksonville team that hasn't won a game and, get ourselves 3-2 and right back at, into this. However, pregame, right? Entering this week, I was hearing that The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville in almost 10 years. And, Derek was like, this is going to be an L. I have no faith in the Indianapolis Colts. And what happened? It came to fruition, which is absolutely crazy. And when you look at the game for 3 quarters, it was all Jacksonville. And then just in the fourth, Joe Flacco just exploded. Pause. But they were doing everything they wanted to do in the fourth quarter. Jacksonville hangs on to win. And they get their first dub of the season. Like Rossi said, this one was needed for Trevor Lawrence. There was so much criticism, 0-9 in his last 9 starts and got the big contract. If they would have lost, you would have saw people fired. You would have saw this whole thing collapse. But it's not looking good right now for Indy, though. I will say that. But overall, a crazy game. It came down right to the very end. A fun game. Jacksonville gets it, man. And I can't wait to hear what Derek has to say about not winning a game in Jacksonville in a decade.
Derek, you still love them. You still bleed blue. It's still for the shoe.
Sing the song, Derek.
You look frustrated right now, Derek. I got to let you have a minute here to talk to me about what Ruben just said. I don't know what it is. Every team seems to have their kryptonite, and for some reason, Jacksonville is that for these Colts. Despite the offensive explosion for an Indianapolis, it just wasn't enough. So talk to me about this gut-wrenching loss to knock your Colts to 2-3.
Like I said, I'm not surprised. I'm so pissed at this because, again, what did I say? Ruben brought it up. What did I say all week? I literally said this is exactly what's going to happen. And it fucking happened because it happens every time. I will never pick Indianapolis to win in Jacksonville until they actually do, because they don't every single time. And you know what? I am not one of these people that is going to use the injuries aspect to be the downfall of this team. Yes, the Indianapolis Colts were down 4 defensive linemen and 2 corners in this game. Yes, their defense was decimated. But this was a quarterback that the previous 4 weeks prior to that, do you guys know that Trevor Lawrence, a third of his passing yards for the entirety of the year came in this game against Indianapolis? That 371, you multiply that by 3, it is extremely close to his overall number this year. This defense is atrocious. It is god awful. And it's all because of the defensive coordinator, because he is completely incapable of being able to get out of the pass and act like he's not coaching the Legion of Boom. That's what he thinks he's doing right now, but he is allowing these trash quarterbacks to throw for 350 yards on this team every single week. And I'm sick and tired of it. And because of Chris Ballard, who didn't get the depth necessary to make sure that this team was in the right situation with the secondary, he just said, we like our guys. We like our guys. Even though half of our secondary has been cut, released, or waived since roster cuts happened a little over a month ago. I am over this team. I am so over this defense, man. And listen, Joe Flacco did have a really good game. But guys, I'm going to tell you this. He scored a touchdown on the first drive of the game. Okay? He was 7 of 7 for 75 yards, picking apart the Jacksonville offense or defense like he was a surgeon, man. And it was like you couldn't have gotten better for the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts did not score another touchdown until the second play of the fourth quarter. So again, we can talk about like this whole Joe Flacco was amazing. He did all of his work in the first drive and then the entirety of the fourth quarter when Jacksonville had a 2-score lead almost the whole fourth quarter. That's the whole point. Like, we were incompetent as an offense from the first drive and for the next 40 minutes of football. Like, you can't play like that. You can't go out here and expect to win when you only show up for about maybe 15 minutes of a game. And that's the shitty part of this team. They are so incompetent. If the offense is figuring it out, the defense is so bad. If the defense is actually doing its job, which it actually somewhat did through the second and third quarter, was limiting Jacksonville, the offense just doesn't do shit. And so I'm so mad, dude, because like, again, and people are using this as an argument of why Flacco should start for the remainder of the season and Anthony Richardson should just stay benched. Like, you threw for 359 yards and you still didn't win. Like, it has nothing to do with what quarterback you have. This defense for the Indianapolis Colts is going to be the Achilles heel of this team because they are injured as all can be, and their defensive coordinator has a trash scheme with trash defensive players that can't fulfill the scheme. And I'm so mad at it, man. This is now a decade of losing to this sorry-ass team in Jacksonville every year. A decade. I was a senior in high school.
Damn.
The time I saw this team actually win in Jacksonville. I'm sick and tired of it, man.
Derek's frustration must mean Cardiac's elation. Cardiac, this is the moment, frankly, you've been waiting for about a year. Not only do you get the W here, but you got it with all the right elements in place. You got Trevor Lawrence just south of 400 yards. Tank Bigsby went off. And Brian Thomas Jr., the rookie. What a day. 5 catches, $122, and a touchdown. It had to feel terrific, Cardiac, to finally get on the board, especially the way that they did it. Walk me through the first W for your Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, as Ricky Bobby said, I didn't know what to do with my hands after that game. It's been a long time. But, to me, like, going into the game, it was a battle of the curses. And the Colts fans are always going to think about, like, oh, we haven't won in Jacksonville, right? It's been 9 times going into this game. Trevor Lawrence had lost 9 straight starts at the same time. We were wearing throwbacks. We had Tom Coughlin going into the pride of the Jaguars. It just felt like the perfect recipe for just a disaster to take place with how this team has been. But they end up winning. And Trevor Lawrence, whether or not you like him or you think he's the franchise quarterback, he needed this desperately. I was looking at like statistics on him before this game. One of the things that was the most damning before this matchup was when you look at like adjusted completion rate. And I use that specifically because everyone's argument is always like wide receivers drop it all the time in Jacksonville. They lead the league since like 2021. He was 8% behind 2021 under Urban Meyer on accuracy. 8%. That's like mind-numbing to be that off after getting extended for the most money in the league. And so it's great to see a really good game from Trevor Lawrence, just talking about him for a moment, but we need to see this consistently. I'm happy they won, right? But I'm still trying to be a realist. Last year I thought they were going to go win the Super Bowl. They didn't win the Super Bowl. I'm trying to be a little more smart with my predictions, but they're 1-4. They've got a lot to prove. They've got hard games coming up. And Trevor Lawrence needs to put these games together consistently because throwing for 300 plus yards one week and then the next 4 is like 150 a game, it's not acceptable, right? It's not good enough. And now you're being paid like that guy. Now, one thing I did want to talk about, the Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne thing, because everyone's all over like Bigsby is the RB1 stuff. I think this is a situation where this is still going to be a split backfield. And I think the way Bigsby plays is it fits so well into what Jacksonville does as an offense, because for Tank Bigsby, he's a very decisive runner. He makes quick decisions. Whereas Travis Etienne, he's a more patient guy. Like he's trying to find the open lanes. This is not a good run blocking team. And so you got to go like right off the bat. And we've seen Travis Etienne struggle this year. And when you watch the film, he's waiting for these lanes to open that are not opening. Tank Bigsby, he's going for it, right? And he's a tough runner. He's able to bounce off guys. It just fits so much better for him. And so I think until they fix that problem, if they ever do, because it's been a problem for God knows how long now, I think Tank Bigsby needs to get a lot of carries and needs to be a huge part of this backfield, right? Now, last thing I'll say really quick, and we can talk more about the game, of course, but Brian Thomas Jr., just it is incredible how he's on Jacksonville and how lucky we got. I remember recording a video just being pissed about Calvin Ridley going to the Titans. And it was damning because of the way they got to that, right? It was just a terrible process to lose him. But the pivot has been great. Brian Thomas Jr., the second he stepped into this building, I remember him getting comped to, or talked about with Adonai Mitchell, right? Derek's going to know plenty about him being on the Colts. And a lot of people said Mitchell is a better player right now. The way that Thomas has approached this season, his work ethic, he's not the loudest guy in the room, but he's going to put his head down. He's going to work. He's gotten so much better as a player. And I'm just really impressed by what he's done. And it's crazy to say how good he is right now, 5 games into the season. But those are my big takeaways from this game.
Derek, I want to go back to something you mentioned, because nothing better than a quarterback controversy, especially when you're talking about the future with a guy whose future started 20 years ago. I mean, this is just insanity. But when you got Joe Flacco coming in and doing what he did the other day, and then you have Anthony Richardson, who, let's face it, it was not good before he got hurt. And the key word here again is hurt. Misses last year. He gets hurt again early on here. Can you kind of walk me and everybody else through the pulse of this Colts fan base right now surrounding this situation? Because I have a feeling it's got to be pretty wild being in the state you're in at 2-3, seeing the type of performance despite the loss. And I know you said a lot of it came in circumstances that weren't necessarily the most beneficial to the Colts throughout the duration of the game. But regardless, a controversy here in the most unlikely of ways. Can you kind of walk me through the pulse of the Colts fan base right now and ultimately where you stand on the matter moving forward here?
Well, obviously amongst the fan base, there's a quarterback controversy. With the actual organization itself, there is none. Anthony Richardson is the guy going forward, and that should be the case, because and I'll tell you what, I mean, Darius Butler, who is on Pat McAfee's show almost every day, he's a former Indianapolis Colt, was one of the best cornerbacks we've ever had. And I respect his opinion, and I respect the guy because he was a great player for the Colts. He was even going on Twitter after the game on Monday and saying, we need to put Joe Flacco in for the remainder of the year. And I'm sitting here like, dude, I respect you, but like, how can you even say that? Like, you're smart enough to know the circumstances behind this situation. Like, if Anthony Richardson wanted to play in that game, if the Colts really needed him to, and if it was the playoffs or nothing for that game, Anthony Richardson would have played. They just said with the weather the way it was, and he was questionable going into it, they just felt like it would be better if we had just kept him out of it for one more game, because they know he's going to come back this week against the Tennessee Titans. There's a long season of it. We have to make sure we're looking out for his best interest. But there is no controversy here when it comes to this group. I say it again. You putting Joe Flacco in for the entire year does absolutely nothing for this team. Again, you just saw the perfect example. Joe Flacco last week against Pittsburgh, right? Came in after Anthony Richardson looked like maybe the best version of Anthony Richardson we had seen all year. And then he went down with an injury, and then Joe Flacco took over. The Colts barely hung on against the Steelers. Yes, they went up 20-3 at one point, but they gave up 3 straight touchdowns. We almost lost the game. I mean, it's not like we were juggernauts against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then this week, you just saw Joe Flacco put on one of the greatest performances of the entire season. It might go down as one of the best performances all year of any quarterback. And you still lost, because the point of this team is this defense is atrocious. This team is not ready. This team is not in a situation where they're going to the Super Bowl. They're not even contending. They're barely in contention to even make the playoffs. Right now, they're like 11th seed in the AFC, which is crazy, because like if you moved one game around here and there, they would be like the 6th seed right now, which is crazy to think about. But again, what does that strive for you? It doesn't do anything for you. Yes, it might give you the potentially best option to win a few more games, but if you're not being serious about contending, then there's no point in it, because you have to make it to where Anthony Richardson is getting the snaps. You have to know for certain if this is the guy you want in the future or not. And he's not going to learn by sitting on the sidelines with an iPad and doing more film reps and throwing in practices. That's not how this kid's going to learn. He's got to learn by doing the game reps. And if he doesn't get game reps, he's never going to learn to protect himself. He's never going to learn to be able to adjust his throwing. He's never going to be able to continue to get those reps for himself. So there is no controversy here. Anthony Richardson is going to be remaining the future of this team. And like it or not, I mean, he's going to be the future next year too, whether people seem to like it or not. He is the immediate future for this team. It's just whether or not he's the long-term one, I don't know. That's still remaining to be determined. I had a lot more faith in Anthony Richardson going into it. But, I mean, obviously, I'm still falling back right now on what Anthony Richardson has done so far. But listen, before I finish talking about any of this, because we're obviously going to go move on to some other stuff here, I want to go back here real quick to just how atrocious this Colts defense has been against Trevor Lawrence. So I just want to give you guys some more, as if him throwing for 80% completion percentage for 371 yards wasn't bad enough. It's about to look even worse. So here's the deal. In the last 5 games that Trevor Lawrence has played against the Colts with Gus Bradley as a defensive coordinator, his completion percentages go as follows: 84% completion percentage, 91% completion percentage, 75% completion percentage, 67% completion percentage, and then 83% completion percentage. In the last 3 games, Trevor Lawrence, who is a 60.2% completion percentage passer and throughout his career, these last 3 games, Trevor Lawrence has boosted his completion percentage in these 3 games by the Colts by over 3%. That is how unbelievably bad we are at stopping Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence just dink and dunks everywhere on this defense. And it's not even just that. The Colts just seem to forget how to cover the deep guy, because there was a 2nd and 24 late in that third quarter when you had a chance to come back, and they threw a 65-yard pass because the defense just forgot to cover Christian Kirk going down the field. I am so pissed.
Well, I'm guessing Rossi's hoping that the defense that you just summarized for us for your Colts carries into the game this upcoming weekend.
They just might.
Against Rossi's Titans. And Derek, you referenced this, and I'm glad you did, because I wanted to talk about this in regard to this game coming up between the Titans and the Colts. We can factor in the Jags in there maybe to some degree if we want, because right now the AFC is a bit of a cluster F. It's a little top heavy with the Chiefs at 5-0 and the Texans at 4-1. But then you have 4 3-2 teams, and right now Denver would be in and the Chargers would be in at 2-2. I know it's crazy to think, but upcoming this Sunday, this game between the Colts and the Titans, as crazy as it sounds, it could have some ramification moving into the later stages of the year, just based on how much parity there's been in the AFC thus far. So, Rossi, I'm going to go to you here. I know you were on the bye this week, but coming out of this bye, and we will talk more about this in our Week 6 preview show coming up later in the week, but as you sit here right now with only 1 victory, if you win here, you get to it the same amount of W's as Derek's Colts have, and maybe you start to mount something from there, and one of these teams has to sneak into the 7th spot for the playoffs. So as you're looking here, coming out of the bye, what's the trajectory, the overall landscape looking like from you and the Titans fan base in terms of how they can find a way to creep back up in there and start making some noise starting against Derek's Colts?
Yeah, I mean, if the Titans can pull out a victory, I mean, the positive thing is we're coming off the bye. We got some extra rest. we won the last game, got our first win. We got a little confidence going. I mean, Indianapolis, that it's a good game to come off the bye with. I mean, considering the way their defense has been playing, but that game is always going to be tough. the Colts and Titans, it's always going to be a tough game. But if we could pull that game out, the issue for the Titans is you have a Buffalo at Detroit back to back after that. So I just don't see it for this Titans team. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you pull out a victory against the Colts, possibly. And it all depends on like Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Like, we get to see statistically two of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL play this upcoming week against each other. So we'll see. Maybe this is the game one of them really pops off and it starts the upward trajectory and starts putting their team on their back and starts actually playing really well. But I don't know, man. I just have a feeling this game could be really brutal to watch. Just for both of us, the Colts and the Titans fans. So I don't know, man. But yeah, like there is a lot of parity. There is a lot of parity in the AFC. If you can, this is a huge game for the Colts. Like, I think this is a much bigger game for the Colts than it is.
You could go 0-3 in the
Titans.
division.
That's
right. I mean, if the Colts win this game, they're 3-3 and they're back in the race. You know what I mean? Like, they're back in the thick of it. And that's how much parity
Derek wants
there is. Right. I mean, and so, we'll see how this goes. I think I hate to say this as a Titans fan, but I just don't see this Titans team really doing a whole lot this season. Like, I think this is the find out what you have in Will Levis season, and probably for the Colts too. Find out what you have in Anthony Richardson season as well.
Your thoughts on the Titans are the opposite of what I think the thoughts were on the Jaguars coming in. It just feels like this team has enough talent to be in the thick of things, and they've somehow found a way to go away from that. But they get their first W this past weekend. And Cardiac, I want to kick it back to you as we talk about the parity here, because the Jags are about to start their stint out in London here. These are two winnable games. I know the Bears are playing their best football right now, but it's still against a rookie quarterback, and they've showed offensively that they can be susceptible to a really bad outing. And then you're taking on the Patriots, who right now are probably the worst team in football. There's a world here where the Jags could start 0-4, and then all of a sudden they're 3-4. They're trying to get something building from there. So you take this W, and I'll kind of shape it the way I shaped it to Rossi here. You're in a real tough spot, but you got some advantageous matchups coming up, so you'd think. What's the current state right now, in your opinion, in terms of Jacksonville? Because they have the talent. Unlike with the Titans that Ross you just mentioned, it might be a feel-out year for Levis and just see what's going on with your new head coach and take it from there. That's not the case with your Jags. So as you're getting ready to head into London here, your overall thoughts on the ability for the Jags to turn it around here after getting their first W?
So I'm not really, I'll be honest, I'm not sold that Jacksonville's like flipped the script at all right now. I mean, we played the Colts at home. It was the perfect get right game for now. And while we're playing two rookie quarterbacks in London, that all looks great. We have to go win those games. And if we don't deserve to even be in playoff conversations. It should be over at that point. I mean, we were talking about firing our head coach recently. And while Jacksonville maybe in a very different situation than the Titans, I still felt like going into this year, this was a season where we needed to get questions on a lot of people answered, like Doug Peterson, like Trevor Lawrence, like Trent Baalke as well. And unfortunately, if you're looking at the first 5 games so far, it's not good on any of them. It's better on Trevor now, but we have to see that sustained. And this Bears game, it's tougher than expected, right? Caleb Williams, he's starting to put together some good performances. He's putting up 300 yards in some of these games. I mean, this season, we'll see if he has more 300-yard games than Lawrence has had his whole career. That's sad to say, but that's kind of where we're at right now. But the Bears, they're rushing the ball better. They have a really good defense right now. I was looking at some of their stats on PFF. They're the 3rd highest grade defense in the league. 2nd in coverage, 3rd in tackling, 10th rushing the passer. The only clear weakness is the run defense. And that's where Jacksonville's offense kind of struggles, is the run blocking. They have a good backfield. It's just, are you going to get movement? And so it's going to be imperative for them to rely I think I'm Brian Thomas Jr. throughout these games because you're going to stretch the field. You're going to get the box more empty. You're going to be able to run the ball better. Things have gone better when Lawrence has been able to hit those throws. We've seen a huge difference between what this team is with and without that. And I think if Jacksonville is going to make this miraculous recovery, it's going to run through Brian Thomas Jr. And out of these two games, yeah, the Bears are the one I'm easily the most worried about. I think if we win that, I think the Patriots we should be able to beat. They're arguably the worst team in the NFL. It's close right now, and they're making a quarterback change.
Yeah, they are.
It's concerning. I think. I hope they don't ruin Drake May in that situation. They don't have a good offensive line to protect him. They're rushing it, and yeah, we'll see what happens with them. But Jacksonville's offensive line, Brian Thomas Jr., I think those are the two biggest things I would throw out for what's going to be imperative for them on the London trip.
I know the AFC South seems to be a bit all over the place, but you just mentioned the Patriots. The AFC East is all over the place. Drake May is now taking over. Robert Saleh canned this. I mean, I cannot get over the timing of that firing. Makes no sense to me. And the Bills are just doing anything they possibly can to prove week in and week out that they just don't want to be the football team we all think that they can be. So I understand the frustration in here. There seems to be frustration league-wide. Eric, though, he's enjoying us talking about the frustration on here. Eric's saying, appreciate the show, always entertaining. Appreciate the super chat, Eric, excuse me. And Tay, we're going to go down to you, Derek, for Tay's super chat here. He's saying Colts linebacker core care more about their podcast than they do actually playing defense. Time to bench Mayo, start Rudolph. Your thought. I mean, I know how you feel about the defense, but your thoughts on that super chat here and maybe podcasting being an emphasis over playing.
Zaire and EJ, they don't really have a whole lot to talk about right now. I mean, they was high and mighty after beating the freaking Chicago Bears. Zaire Franklin was on there saying, I took that shit personally, beating Matt Eberflus and that trash ass Chicago team. But now here you go, you're facing another trash ass team, and yet still you lose. And you look just like you did at the start of the year. Trash. That's what they have been. Trash all year. So, and Cardiac, man, I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I call your team trash.
You're good, man.
I'm just mad at the fact that my team was losing to you guys for the 10th year in a row.
I'm probably one of the more pessimistic guys, I think, in the Jaguars community, to be honest, especially this offseason. So I don't even disagree with a lot of your points yet. They gotta go earn their respect back.
But yeah, I'm so mad. I'm mad at them. I'm mad at the whole defense. I'm mad at Gus Bradley. I'm mad at Chris Ballard. I'm mad at all of them.
I know we've got a lot of pessimism going on. Let's end with some optimism. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go to you, Ruben. And I'm looking here. This upcoming week, your Texans got the Pats. This upcoming week, the Chiefs got the Niners. Talk to me about where Houston's at right now in terms of where you guys are thinking about this team finishing at the end of the year. Is the 1 seed talk starting to heat up? Or are you guys sitting here saying we got to wait and see? The Chiefs are still undeniably the best. We'd be happy to continue building on where we're at. Or is it taking on a life of its own where it's like, man, this really could be the year where we get all the way up there, because they could be there this upcoming weekend.
Now I think it's about time you start watching the other top teams in the AFC and entering this game. We heard Landry Locker, someone here in Houston, say about the Buffalo Bills that if you don't beat them, you might have to go to their crib later on, come playoff time, and you do not want to be there in Buffalo with the snow. CJ Shaw plays better in the dome. So this was an important game. And, we do see the Pats. We have never won over there in Gillette. Rookie quarterback. I don't want to overlook this game. I see the Power Hour has as a trap game alert. If the Houston Texans come out sound, they should be able to win this football game. The Patriots, have lost their last 4 and their last 3, haven't put up more than 14 points. The Houston Texans might be without Nico Collins, but they might get Joe Mixon back. However, I think, with all these injuries, you still be able to win this game, but I do not want to overlook the Patriots. However, it's going to be funny if you do win this game. I'm definitely going to be seeing what Kansas City's doing, because if I see that number 1 seed by by that bull, oh man, it's about to be crazy here in the H.
Man, it's crazy in the AFC. It should be a crazy week 6, and we're going to talk about that on the episode coming up later in the week. We got a week 6 preview coming up right here on the AFC South Roundtable YouTube channel later in the week, but it's going to do it for us tonight on the week 5 recap. On your way out the door, if you guys wouldn't mind, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. That way you get notified about all of the upcoming episodes. Also on your way out the door, promo code YouTube150 on BetUS. That's going to get you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000 and 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits after that. For Ruben, Cardiac, Rossi, and Derek, I'm your host, Z-Bot. We appreciate you tuning into the AFC South Roundtable, and we'll see you on the next one.
Ooh, new member.